Hello friend, so glad you're here tonight. Get comfortable, pull the covers up and let the day loosen its grip. There's nowhere else you need to be. Before we begin, a small request. Most of the people listening tonight aren't subscribed. If this channel has ever helped you drift off, take a moment to subscribe and tap the like button on tonight's video. Both are free, they take 2 seconds and they help this channel more than you'd think. And you can always change your mind later. And if you feel like it, leave a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love reading them. Tonight is a slow drift through the real story of Roman Empire, one true thing at a time. There is nothing to do here and nothing to remember. Each one will pass like a slow cloud, some familiar, some quietly surprising, all of them real. If you fall asleep somewhere in the middle, that is exactly how this is meant to work. Settle in, let your breathing slow down, and we will begin. One more thing before we begin. I'm also a co-founder of a sleep app built to be the most affordable one out there. No ads, ever. Just sounds and stories made to help you sleep. It may not be released yet as this video goes up, but if you're watching a little later, it might be out by now. It's called Dozily, and the link is in the description. It works on iPhone, Android, and everything in between. Downloading it is the best way to support this channel. So here's the thing about Rome. During the Roman Empire, which came after their republic, Rome was the heart of it all. It was where the big decisions happened, where people went to see what was going on from faraway places like Spain and Britain. You know how they got all that gold and silver? They mined it right there in those provinces. But think about this. All that precious metal had to make its way back to Rome. That's a lot of treasure moving through the empire. It tells you something about how connected everything was. Even back then, that is power, concentrated in one place. This treasure fueled Rome's economic power and enabled grand public works, from aqueducts to colosseums. It also funded a lavish lifestyle for Rome's elite, demonstrating their wealth and influence. So here's the thing about Rome. During the Roman Empire, which came after their republic, Rome was the heart of it all. It was where the big decisions happened, where people went to see what was going on from faraway places like Spain and Britain. You know how they got all that gold and silver? They mined it right there in those provinces. But think about this, all that precious metal had to make its way back to Rome. That's a lot of treasure moving through the empire. The Roman Empire ruled a massive stretch of land that included the Mediterranean Sea and most of Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa during what's known as the Classical period. That's a lot of territory to manage, from Britain all the way down to the tip of Africa. It's like someone drew a border around all these places and said, this is where we live now. And it lasted for a really long time too, shaping the foundations of what we call Western civilization today. There are even maps that show more than 60,000 miles of roads built by the Romans, connecting everything from Britain to North Africa. It's pretty amazing how they could build something so vast, and it still stands today. That is a long time to hold a single border. The Romans built aqueducts and bridges that brought water and trade to far-flung cities, fostering growth and unity. Their laws and languages spread across this vast empire, creating a common culture. Roman innovations in engineering and governance have left lasting impacts on the world we live in today. The Eastern Roman Empire, often called the Byzantine Empire, lasted until Constantinople fell in 1453. This means that for over 1,000 years, from around 330 AD when Theodosius I made it his permanent seat, this city stood as the heart of an empire. It was a place where emperors ruled, decisions were made, and history unfolded. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked the end of the Roman Empire's long history. That is a significant stretch of time to maintain the continuity of one empire. It was a beacon of learning and culture where ancient Greek knowledge was preserved for future generations. Its strategic location at the crossroads of Europe and Asia made it a critical hub for trade, shaping global commerce. The fall of Constantinople had far-reaching consequences, triggering the Renaissance in the West. Constantinople's libraries held priceless manuscripts, safeguarding wisdom from antiquity. Its mosaics and artworks reflected a blend of Eastern and Western influences, creating a unique visual language. The city's political stability and cultural richness made it an unrivaled center for diplomacy, attracting envoys from across the globe. In 376, there was a massive migration of Goths into the Roman Empire. They were running from the Huns, who had been attacking their homeland. Can you picture it? Thousands upon thousands of people, walking day and night, carrying whatever they could, leaving behind everything else. And where did they go? Right into the heart of the Roman Empire. It must have been quite a sight, all those people coming in, needing shelter, food and safety. That is a lot of people to accommodate. They faced hostility from Roman locals, who saw them as invaders rather than refugees. The sudden influx of people strained Rome's resources, leading to food shortages and social unrest. This event marked the beginning of a long period of tension between the Goths and Romans, setting the stage for future conflicts. The Goths, skilled in warfare and agriculture, brought valuable labor to Roman farms. However, their arrival sparked fear among Romans who saw them as a potential threat to their way of life. This migration also introduced new cultural elements, like Germanic languages and traditions, into the Roman world. The Roman Empire didn't just fade away quickly. It held on through generations right up until the last light faded in the West in the 5th century. That means for hundreds of years, there was a sense of continuity, of borders that were maintained, cities that were kept standing, and systems that kept running. The physical structures, from aqueducts to roads, endured for centuries. That is a significant stretch of time, showing remarkable stability in a world that could have been much more chaotic. This continuity allowed for sustained cultural exchange and economic prosperity, with trade routes remaining open and intellectual ideas spreading freely. Additionally, it fostered a shared sense of identity among Roman citizens who could still trace their lineage back to the empire's early days. These enduring structures and systems were a tangible symbol of Rome's legacy, shaping the landscape and influencing future civilizations long after its fall. The Roman coinage system, standardized under Augustus, remained in use across vast territories, facilitating transactions and unifying economic activity. The empire's legal codes, like the Corpus Juris Civilis, continued to be referenced and adapted by successor states, demonstrating the enduring relevance of Roman law. There was a time when the Roman Empire decided that people shouldn't go hungry, so they created something called the cura annii. This means care of grain. It started because there were too many people out of work and not much happening economically. The idea was to make sure everyone had enough food. What they did was control how grain was distributed. They built big warehouses near the port of Ostia, where ships brought in grain from Egypt and other places. Officials would weigh the grain as it came in, making sure it met standards. Then they'd store it until it was time to distribute it. This meant people always had food, even when times were tough. That's what the cura annii was all about. This system also ensured that prices stayed stable, preventing profiteering. It was a lifeline for the poor and struggling. By keeping the grain in state-controlled warehouses, it reduced the power of private merchants. This system was so effective that it became a model for other empires to follow. It showed how caring for the basic needs of citizens could bring stability and peace. People began to depend on this regular supply, which eased their fears about food shortages. You know, the Roman Empire didn't just spring up overnight. It began in 27 BC with a man named Augustus, or Gaius Octavius, as he was born. This wasn't some small kingdom either. We're talking about an empire that stretched from Britain to Egypt, all under one ruler. That's a lot of ground to cover, isn't it? And it all started with this one guy, Augustus. He laid the foundation for something massive. It's not just a date on a calendar, it's the birth of an empire that would shape the world for centuries to come. That is quite a legacy. Augustus brought a period of relative peace and prosperity known as Pax Romana. He also centralized power under his rule, creating a system that would last for centuries. This allowed Rome to develop its infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and aqueducts, which further solidified the empire's dominance. This unified empire enabled a single currency and legal system to flourish across its vast territories. The widespread use of Latin as a common language facilitated communication and commerce, binding the diverse regions together under one cultural umbrella. In approximately 191 BCE, Delphi came under Roman control. This isn't about a single day's battle. It means that the city and its sacred oracle were no longer independent. They were now part of the Roman Empire, with all that entailed: Roman soldiers stationed there, taxes paid to Rome, and decisions made in Rome rather than Delphi. That is a significant shift in power and influence for an ancient city known throughout the Greek world. The oracle's prophecies, once sought by kings and emperors from across the Mediterranean, now had to align with Roman interests. The city's famous temple was transformed into a symbol of Rome's might, its inscriptions and statues reflecting imperial power. The Greeks could no longer rely on Delphi for unbiased guidance. Every decision echoed the will of Rome. This shift also meant that local customs and rituals were gradually supplanted by Roman ones. The Romans built a forum in Delphi, asserting their power and changing the city's landscape. This loss of independence underscored the growing dominance of Rome across Greece. Greek pilgrims now found their revered sanctuary filled with Roman officials, and once sacred spaces echoed with Latin commands. Delphi's sacred spring, Castalia, known for inspiring poets, was now guarded by Roman legionaries, a stark symbol of the new order. The Roman state began in a small way, with just one leader calling the shots back in the early days of the 10th century BCE. But things really took off when they shifted to a republic around 509 BCE. This wasn't just about changing who was in charge. It meant more people had a say in how things were run. The Roman state started growing, spreading outwards from its original borders. It became bigger and stronger, with many different voices contributing to its success. This expansion didn't happen overnight. It took time for the Romans to build up their power, to conquer new lands, and to establish control over a larger area. Think of it like gradually setting up outposts along a river, first one, then another, until you have a network of strongholds. They were steadily extending their reach, bit by bit. That's a significant evolution from a small monarchy to a powerful republic that could grow and adapt over time. This shift in governance also allowed for a division of power, creating checks and balances that prevented any single leader from accumulating too much control. This new political structure fostered innovation and resilience, enabling the Romans to adapt to various challenges and opportunities as they expanded their territory. Diocletian brought in a system called tetrarchy in 293 AD. It split the Roman Empire into 4 regions. Each region had an emperor and a junior co-emperor to help out. Think of it as a way to keep control, like having managers overseeing different parts of a big company. The empire was just too large for one person to handle alone. This system helped maintain order across such vast distances. That's a smart way to govern. This system allowed for quick response to local crises, as each emperor could focus on his region's issues. It also facilitated the division of labor, with co-emperors handling day-to-day tasks while emperors focused on long-term strategies. This system ensured that no single ruler held too much power, reducing the risk of tyranny. It allowed for efficient communication and cooperation among the emperors, ensuring a united front against external threats. Additionally, it fostered a sense of local pride and loyalty, as people felt their region was being well cared for by an emperor who understood their specific needs. This system enabled swift military response, as each emperor could command nearby legions. It also facilitated cultural exchange, with regional emperors promoting local arts and traditions. Moreover, it prevented a power vacuum in case of sudden death or incapacitation, as there were always backup rulers ready to take charge. Trajan had a plan when he became emperor in 117 AD, a grand one. He didn't just want Rome to stay strong, he wanted it to grow, to reach farther than ever before. He planned for roads, for new cities at the edges of their known world, even for more people to join them. That's not something you do overnight. It takes time, resources, and a clear vision. What does that say about Trajan? it says he was thinking long-term. That is a bold move for an emperor. He oversaw the construction of roads that stretched across deserts and mountains, making travel safer and more efficient. These infrastructure projects brought distant lands into Rome's orbit, facilitating trade and cultural exchange. His roads allowed for swift military movements, enabling Rome to defend its ever-expanding borders. This infrastructure also promoted local economies, as merchants could now easily reach markets far from home. These innovations demonstrated Rome's commitment to progress and unity, fostering a sense of empire-wide cooperation. Under his rule, Rome's population grew exponentially due to improved living conditions and economic opportunities. Trajan's visionary approach to expansion not only solidified Roman power, but also cultivated a lasting legacy of innovation and connectivity that resonates even today. You know how we have laws today? Well, in the Roman Empire, they didn't just make up rules as they went along. In the 6th century, Emperor Justinian I decided to collect all the scattered laws and write them down in one big book. It's like having a massive notebook where every rule is neatly listed, so no one can claim they didn't know what was allowed or not. That way, people across the empire could just look up the law instead of guessing or relying on local traditions. It made things much simpler and fairer. That's something to appreciate about order and consistency. This collection was called Corpus Juris Civilis and spanned many topics, from family life to commerce. It laid the groundwork for modern legal systems by providing a common framework. Having one source of truth meant fewer disputes and greater predictability in resolving conflicts. It was a monumental task, requiring decades of work by teams of scholars. They scoured archives and consulted with experts to ensure every law was accurately documented. This comprehensive collection paved the way for future legal systems, providing a model that many civilizations would follow. It also helped maintain stability across the empire, ensuring that justice could be consistently applied from one end to the other. Before Rome even started building aqueducts, people had been using them for centuries. Picture water flowing through stone pipes, bringing life-giving liquid to cities and towns far from any natural source. That's what it means when we say aqueducts were already in use before Rome's first one, the Aqua Appia, was built in 312 BCE. It tells us that moving water over long distances wasn't a new idea, but something people had been doing for a very long time. That's an impressive feat of engineering and planning, isn't it? And yet, Rome took it to another level. These aqueducts supplied cities like Athens and Pergamon with water, proving vital for public health and sanitation. They demonstrated a deep understanding of hydraulics, showing how ancient civilizations could harness nature's power for their benefit. These structures, often supported by arches and bridges, could span valleys and even mountains. They showed that ancient engineers understood gravity's role in moving water efficiently. This early reliance on aqueducts marked a turning point for civilization, enabling growth and sustaining larger populations than ever before. Roman architecture carried on the tradition started by Greek builders, especially in their use of what's called the Corinthian order. You might have heard of it. It's a specific style where columns are slim and fluted at the bottom, then swell out towards the top, finishing with an ornate capital that looks like a cluster of leaves. The Romans really liked this look, so they took these design principles and spread them far and wide across their empire. That is how architectural styles travel over time. The Corinthian order was particularly favoured for its elegant appearance, making it popular in public buildings and temples. It signified wealth and power, so Roman leaders used it to project their authority. Additionally, the widespread use of this style helped create a sense of unity across the empire, as people recognized these architectural features wherever they went. Roman builders often carved intricate acanthus leaves into these capitals, symbolizing growth and immortality. This style also allowed for greater flexibility in design, as columns could be easily adapted to different sizes and heights. Its enduring popularity reflected the Romans' appreciation for both aesthetics and practicality. So, one fascinating thing about Justinian's laws is that he didn't just write new rules. He also looked back at old legal texts from classical times and picked out the best parts, like extracting gold nuggets from a river of words. These extracts became part of his digest, a collection of essential ideas from wise jurists of the past. It's as if he was saying, let's not reinvent the wheel, these thoughts are timeless. That's a smart way to build a legal foundation. This approach not only preserved valuable insights, but also ensured consistency across different regions. The digest became a cornerstone for future legal systems, demonstrating how past wisdom can guide present and future decisions. This digest was written in Latin, making it accessible across the vast Roman Empire. Scholars from different regions could easily understand and apply these laws, fostering unity. Additionally, by compiling these ideas into one coherent text, Justinian created a readily available reference for legal professionals, promoting efficiency and consistency in legal practice. The digest wasn't just a collection but a living document, continually referenced and cited in legal debates. This practice not only validated Justinian's approach, but also ensured the ideas were tested and refined over time. Moreover, by distilling complex legal texts into digestible sections, he made the law accessible to both scholars and laypeople, truly democratizing knowledge. In the 2nd century AD, there was a Roman jurist named Gaius. He wrote a textbook called Institutes about the law of their time. This book became very influential, meaning many people read it and found it helpful in understanding Roman law. That is a significant contribution to the field of law. This textbook was used by law students for centuries, shaping the foundation of their education. It provided a clear structure to the complex Roman legal system, making it more accessible to future generations. Gaius's Institutes was so influential that it became a primary source for Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis, which forms the basis of modern civil law. It laid the groundwork for understanding legal principles like possessio and dominium, crucial for property rights. His clear explanations and practical examples made complex laws comprehensible to ordinary people. Gaius's Institutes was among the first attempts to systematize Roman law, organizing it into a coherent framework. It offered concrete examples from daily life, illustrating abstract legal concepts in tangible ways. The textbook bridged gaps between theory and practice, becoming an essential guide for both lawyers and everyday citizens navigating the legal landscape. When Theodosius I died in 395, he left a mess for his sons. He'd just finished 2 brutal civil wars, and his army was in tatters, worn out from fighting and probably hungry too. Now, they were expecting this guy's kids to step up. Arcadius and Honorius weren't ready. Theodosius must have known it. He divided the empire between them anyway. What choice did he have? The army couldn't hold the borders alone. They needed a leader. That's what it means. A collapsing army, 2 incapable sons, and an empire in desperate need of peace. Theodosius's generals struggled to maintain order, facing mutinies and desertions. The borders were left vulnerable to barbarian invasions, as Roman defences crumbled under the weight of internal strife. The once mighty empire now teetered on the brink of disintegration, with no clear path forward for stability. The generals had no clear chain of command, leading to chaos and indecision. Loyalty was divided, with some soldiers pledging allegiance to one son while others chose the other. The empire's feigned Roman law began to break down as local leaders took matters into their own hands. By 395 AD, a significant shift had occurred in the Roman Empire. The Goths and other non-Romans had become strong enough to challenge both halves of the empire. This wasn't just a minor skirmish, it was a force that could seriously threaten the stability of Rome. Picture groups of people, armed and organized, standing against the mighty Roman armies. That is a serious development in the history of the empire. These Goths had settled within Roman borders, gaining experience and resources. Rome's once secure frontiers were now vulnerable, and its power was starting to fragment. By the 5th century, these Goths had carved out their own kingdoms within Roman territory. They now commanded significant military might, posing a grave threat to Rome's internal cohesion. This fragmentation weakened Rome's ability to defend against external threats, signaling the beginning of its eventual decline. The Goths' military success wasn't mere luck, they had adapted Roman tactics, turning them against their former masters. Their growing influence also meant cultural shifts, as local populations adopted Gothic customs and languages. Moreover, Rome's fragmented response showed the limits of its imperial control, exposing deep-seated divisions that further undermined its strength. In the quiet of the night, consider Constantine I. He did something remarkable during his reign from 324 to 337. He made Christianity legal, which meant people could practice their faith openly without fear. And then he moved the capital of the empire from Rome to a place called Constantinople. What does that mean? Well, it's like moving your home base from one city to another. It changes the center of power and influence. It means new buildings go up in the new location, people start to gather there instead of the old place. That is a significant shift for an empire. Constantinople became a beacon of learning and culture, attracting scholars from all corners. Its strategic location on trade routes brought immense wealth and influence. The city's grandeur signified the empire's enduring strength. The move also centralized religious authority, as the city housed the world's largest church. Constantinople's fortified walls offered unparalleled defense, ensuring the empire's security. The city's libraries and academies fostered intellectual growth, shaping minds and influencing thought for centuries. It became a magnet for artists and craftsmen who created masterpieces that still inspire awe today. The move also signaled a cultural shift, as Roman traditions blended with Eastern influences, creating a unique fusion. In Dacia, along the Black Sea and the Danube rivers, they had a complex border defense system known as the Limes Moesiae. It was made up of multiple layers of fortifications and walls, with 2 or 3 lines of thick, sturdy ramparts called vallum. These walls were not just simple barriers, they included watchtowers, gates, and paths for soldiers to move along quickly. They were designed to be strong enough to withstand attacks and high enough to see enemies coming from a distance. That is a significant amount of effort and resources put into protecting the empire's borders. This intricate system allowed the Romans to monitor and control their border efficiently, deterring invasion attempts. The presence of such robust defences signified Rome's commitment to preserving its territorial integrity. Some sections of this border system are still visible today, a reminder of Rome's engineering prowess. This network of defences enabled swift communication and coordination among troops. The strategic placement of these fortifications also served to intimidate potential invaders. The walls were often topped with sharp spikes or broken glass, further deterring climbers. The system's success relied on well-trained soldiers patrolling day and night, ensuring no breach went unnoticed. Its maintenance required constant upkeep, showcasing Rome's dedication to border security. This fact tells us that in its prime, the Achaemenid Empire stretched across a vast territory, from what's now the Balkans, all the way to the Indus Valley. That's roughly 5.5 million square kilometers. To give you an idea of just how huge that is, it's about twice the size of India today. It means there were roads connecting cities across deserts and mountains, trade routes crisscrossing the empire, and messages travelling vast distances. Soldiers marched from one end to the other, sometimes taking months. That is an incredibly expansive territory for a single empire to control. This network of roads and routes not only facilitated trade, but also allowed for swift military mobilization. It meant that an army stationed in one corner could quickly respond to threats elsewhere. This interconnectedness fostered a shared culture, with ideas and innovations traveling as easily as goods. Such infrastructure was crucial for maintaining order in such a sprawling empire. This vast empire was divided into provinces, each with a governor appointed by the central authority. The main language of administration was Aramaic, ensuring smooth communication across borders. This extensive network enabled Cyrus the Great to conquer such a massive territory in just a few years. You know how coins have weights? Well, in the Roman Empire, they had a standard one called the denarius. It was made of silver and weighed about as much as 4.5 grams. That's roughly the same weight as an American quarter coin. Now, picture that little bit of silver, so light it almost seems like nothing. But in those days, that tiny amount of metal could buy you something real, like a meal or a piece of clothing. It was a standard, a way to measure value across the vast empire. That's what made the denarius powerful, not just its weight, but the trust people put in it. Its design, a bust of the emperor on one side and Roma, the goddess of Rome, on the other, was instantly recognizable. This uniformity ensured that denarii were accepted everywhere in the empire, from bustling markets to remote outposts. In fact, the trust in its value was so strong that many transactions involved just counting coins rather than weighing them. The denarius's uniformity allowed merchants to transact business confidently, knowing they could rely on a consistent currency. This stability facilitated commerce across diverse regions, fostering economic growth throughout the empire. In times of crisis, the denarius even served as a lifeline, its value remaining steadfast when other assets failed. Rome's public works and military financing were largely funded by taxes. You see, they collected these revenues through various means like property taxes on houses, lands and businesses, as well as customs duties on goods that passed through their borders. So, whenever a merchant brought in new silks from the east or spices from the south, Rome would collect a little bit of money for that transaction. That's how they built aqueducts, roads, and maintained their vast army. It was a system that kept Rome running smoothly, ensuring its people had access to clean water, safe travel routes, and protection. That is how an empire thrives. This system also allowed Rome to develop its famous public baths and theatres, enhancing the daily life of its citizens. Additionally, it facilitated the construction of grand temples and other architectural marvels that defined Rome's cultural identity. The efficiency of this fiscal model enabled the empire to maintain a strong currency, fostering stability and trust in economic transactions across its territories. This fiscal system was so successful that it allowed Rome to maintain a standing army, with soldiers receiving regular pay and supplies. Furthermore, the taxes collected were not just used for infrastructure, but also funded education initiatives and public healthcare, further enriching Roman society. There's a project called unhurried, and it's about mapping the roads of the Roman Empire. This isn't just any map, but a high-resolution one. It means you can see the details, the curves, the paths they took. It's not just about where the road was, but how it looked. How it wound through valleys or cut across plains. It's like drawing a picture with a fine pencil rather than a thick crayon. And here's something interesting. They use old records to help them do this. Like reading someone else's notes and using them to draw your own map. Isn't that clever? That gives you a real sense of what those roads were like. It's not just history, but something you can almost walk along in your mind. You see how they planned, how they built. That's quite an achievement. They even marked where inns and milestones stood, hinting at how travelers navigated. This map is more than a historical record. It's a tool for archaeologists to pinpoint exact locations of ancient sites. These roads connected far-flung corners of the empire, enabling swift communication and trade. They were often paved with stone, showing the Romans' advanced engineering skills. And by tracking these routes, we gain insights into their strategic planning and logistics. You know how old maps were flat and simple? A new Roman map is being developed that's much more detailed and interactive. It uses technology called vector tiles, which makes it easier to zoom in on specific areas without losing quality. Think of it like Google Maps for the ancient world. This could help historians study the empire's layout with more precision. That's an exciting tool for understanding the past. This interactive map will allow users to overlay different historical layers, showing how borders and settlements changed over time. It will also provide detailed annotations, explaining the significance of key locations like aqueducts and roads. This tool could revolutionize our understanding of Roman infrastructure and its impact on daily life. This technology could help us see how Rome's infrastructure evolved alongside its political and social structures. It allows us to explore the intricate web of roads, aqueducts, and bridges that kept the empire connected. This map might also reveal hidden paths and lesser-known routes, giving insight into the daily lives of both Romans and those living under their rule. You know how sometimes we use modern maps to find old roads? Well, that's exactly what happened with the Roman roads. Researchers used today's topographic maps to locate those ancient paths for a dataset called unhurried. Isn't it interesting how technology from different eras can come together like that? So, Those old Roman roots are still there, waiting to be discovered just by looking at a map. Archaeologists now overlay these routes with other data, like ancient artifacts and historical texts. This helps pinpoint exactly where roads once stood, providing insights into Roman life and trade networks. Some paths have been lost to time, but their remnants are still integral parts of today's landscape. These ancient paths often followed natural features, like hills and rivers, which helped early travelers navigate. They were vital for the Roman Empire's expansion, enabling swift troop movements and trade goods transport. Some stretches even have visible ruts from centuries of wagon wheels, showcasing their enduring legacy. They also served as communication highways, allowing news to travel swiftly across vast distances. This intricate network facilitated the spread of culture and ideas alongside goods. Moreover, these roads provided a tangible link between distant regions, forging connections that endured long after the empire's fall. The decline of the Roman Empire began under Commodus, who ruled from 180 to 192 AD. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but a slow, steady decline that started with him. Things like infrastructure and political stability, which had been solid for so long, started to crumble. Roads went unrepaired, bureaucracy got messier, and the army was less effective. Commodus himself was more interested in personal glory than governing well. His reign marked a turning point where the empire started to lose some of its strength and coherence. That's when things began to unravel for Rome. Commodus spent vast sums on gladiator games and self-promotion, neglecting essential public works. This diversion of resources left Rome's citizens to fend for themselves amid crumbling infrastructure. His policies led to widespread discontent and economic strain, eroding the empire's foundational unity. Commodus's obsession with gladiatorial combat even led him to rename Rome Colonia Commodiana, reflecting his delusion of grandeur. This self-aggrandizement further alienated the Senate and the people, eroding trust in imperial leadership. Meanwhile, the neglected provinces grew restless, feeling unprotected and exploited by Rome's misguided priorities. Carthage was a powerful city in North Africa, but it stood against Rome 3 times and lost each time. The final defeat came in 146 BCE, when the Romans destroyed Carthage completely. They killed or enslaved its people and burned the city to the ground, sowing salt into the earth so nothing would grow there again. That was Rome's way of saying they wouldn't tolerate any resistance. It meant the end of a great city and the beginning of Roman rule over that land. The ruins of Carthage still stand as a grim reminder. Nothing grows on that salty soil, where once thriving markets bustled with life and trade. It marked Rome's brutal assertion of dominance, silencing any dissenting voice for centuries to come. The Romans also stole or destroyed countless artifacts, erasing Carthage's cultural heritage. They renamed the city Colonia Julia Concordia Carthago, symbolizing its subjugation. The once proud metropolis now served as a humble provincial town under Rome's iron fist. The Romans also ploughed the city's streets with oxen, mixing salt deeply into the soil. This act symbolized Carthage's total obliteration as a rival power. The salt served as an eternal reminder of Rome's unyielding might and the fate awaiting those who defied them. Furthermore, the demolition of Carthage's temples signified the crushing of its spiritual foundation, leaving no trace of its once vibrant religious practices. You know how some people have a faith that guides their lives? Well, for the Ottoman Empire, that faith was Islam. It wasn't just something they believed in privately, it influenced everything from their laws to their culture. Think of all those grand mosques, places where people gathered to pray together. That's what made this empire unique. Everything from their art to their daily lives was touched by Islam. It wasn't just a personal belief, it shaped an entire civilization. That's the power of faith when it becomes the core of a society. This faith also guided their military conquests, with Islamic law ensuring fair treatment of defeated populations. Even their architecture reflected this devotion, with minarets reaching skyward as symbols of faith's lofty aspirations. Every Ottoman sultan was also the caliph, or spiritual leader, of Islam, uniting political and religious power. Islamic scholars educated in Ottoman madrasas spread their knowledge across the empire, ensuring a consistent understanding of faith. The empire's coinage often bore Islamic phrases, further emphasizing the pervasive influence of Islam in daily life. A lot of early Roman history was lost in one fell swoop. In 390 BCE, the Gauls, an ancient tribe from what is now France, sacked Rome. They destroyed many sources on early Roman history, books, scrolls, anything written down that told the story of those first years. It's like trying to read a book where half the pages are torn out. You can piece together what happened, but there will always be gaps, missing details, things left unsaid. That sacking was a serious blow to our understanding of early Roman history. It's almost like we're left with an incomplete puzzle, forever trying to fill in the blanks. The Gauls left no stone unturned, literally. They burned not only scrolls, but also buildings that housed Rome's earliest libraries and archives. This destruction made it nearly impossible to reconstruct the full picture of early Roman life. Scholars now rely heavily on oral traditions and archaeological findings to fill these voids. This devastation means that much of what we know about the early days of Rome comes from much later writers, like Livy and Virgil, who had to rely on legend and hearsay. Without those written records, it's hard to separate fact from fiction in their accounts. The loss is especially painful because early Roman history was a time of great social change, with the rise of the Republic and the shift away from monarchy. We can only guess at what might have been documented if not for this tragedy. It turns out that what we thought was the Roman constitution wasn't quite right. Historians who grew up with Mommsen's ideas were surprised to find out that the Roman system of government wasn't what it seemed. It was more complicated, with different layers and checks in place. That's not just some dry academic debate, it means the power wasn't as straightforward as we thought. There were councils, assemblies, and magistrates all working together or against each other to make decisions. So, what seems like a simple system on paper was actually a complex dance of political maneuvering. That's a lot more interesting than just reading the rules in a book. For example, the Senate wasn't just an advisory body but held significant power. The assemblies could veto their decisions, creating a dynamic balance. This intricate web of checks and balances ensured that no single entity dominated, reflecting the Romans' commitment to preventing tyranny. For instance, plebeians could elect tribunes who had the power to veto decisions made by patrician-dominated Senate. This allowed common people a say in governance, preventing an aristocratic stranglehold. The system wasn't perfect, it could be chaotic, with power struggles and gridlocks. Yet, it ensured that Rome remained resilient in the face of internal conflicts, showing remarkable adaptability over centuries. Ronald Sim was a historian who made us rethink the Roman constitution. He didn't just repeat what everyone already knew. He dug deep and found new truths, like how power wasn't as neatly divided as we thought between the Senate and the Emperor. It was more like two forces tugging at each other, each trying to pull the other into their way of doing things. A constant dance, if you will, where neither side really had full control. That makes you wonder who really held the reins in Rome's golden days. It was never as simple as the history books made it seem. Sim's findings revealed that the Roman constitution was more fluid than previously thought. The lines between the Senate and Emperor were often blurred, with both sides using political marriages and adoptions to gain advantage. This constant jostling for power meant that Rome's government was in a state of dynamic equilibrium, always adapting to shifting alliances and threats. Sim's work also shed light on the importance of image and perception in Roman politics. The emperor would often portray himself as a benevolent figure, while the Senate aimed to maintain an aura of traditional values. This delicate balance was crucial for maintaining stability and avoiding civil unrest. Sim's findings have since become a cornerstone in understanding the intricate web of power and influence that shaped Roman governance. When Rome shifted to a republic in 509 BC, it was like switching from a monarchy to something more flexible and responsive. This wasn't just about who sat on the throne. It changed how decisions were made, how power flowed. It meant that instead of one person calling all the shots, there was now a group, elected by citizens, making those calls. That shift had real impacts. It meant different voices could be heard, different ideas could be tested. And over time, this change would shape Rome into something much more complex and durable than it had been before. It's a moment that set the stage for centuries of Roman history. That republic lasted a long, long time, until 27 BC, when the empire rose up again. This new political structure fostered a culture where debate and compromise were essential, shaping Rome's legal system. It encouraged public involvement, as citizens now had a say in who governed them, leading to increased accountability among leaders. This shift allowed Rome to incorporate new territories and people into its governance, creating a more inclusive society. It also led to the creation of institutions like the Senate, which became the backbone of Roman politics. Additionally, this change paved the way for Rome's legendary lawmaking, with the 12 Tables serving as one of the earliest examples of codified law in Western civilization. Think about how vast the Roman Empire was, stretching from the Mediterranean Sea across Europe and into North Africa. This expansion happened gradually over time. It's like watching a vine slowly cover an entire wall, spreading steadily without any sudden leaps or bounds. The empire maintained this size for centuries, before finally collapsing in 476 CE. That is quite a long period to sustain such an extensive domain. This vast territory facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. The network of roads, aqueducts, and bridges built by Romans enabled efficient communication and trade across their empire. This connectedness fostered a sense of unity among diverse populations, binding them together under Roman rule. The Romans introduced standardized measurements and a common currency, the denarius, simplifying trade across their empire. This unified system facilitated the flow of resources like grain from Egypt to feed Rome's hungry populace. Additionally, Roman law provided a consistent framework for resolving disputes, maintaining order amidst cultural diversity. This vast network also allowed for the swift movement of troops, enabling Rome to maintain its military dominance. The Roman civilization's ability to adapt local cultures into their own system, known as Romanization, further solidified their empire's cohesion. By 27 BCE, the Roman Republic had already claimed most of its neighboring lands. This means that when it became the Roman Empire, it didn't need to spend time and resources conquering new territories. Instead, they could focus on strengthening their hold over what they already had. That is a significant advantage for any empire. This early expansion allowed Rome to establish a network of roads and cities across its vast territory, facilitating trade and communication. The secure borders enabled a period of peace and stability, fostering cultural growth and the development of Roman law. Additionally, the lack of need for constant military campaigns permitted investment in infrastructure and public works, further cementing Rome's dominance. This unified territory also facilitated the standardization of weights, measures, and currency, making trade even smoother. The absence of external threats allowed Rome to develop its arts and literature, with writers like Virgil and Horace flourishing under these conditions. Additionally, this stability permitted Rome to refine its governance, creating a robust system that ensured the smooth running of their empire. The Romans had a habit of making their conquests final. In 206 to 205 BCE, they took Gades, which was pretty much the last stronghold of the Carthaginians on the Iberian Peninsula. 10 years later, in 212 BCE, they wrapped up that campaign by taking Saguntum from the same folks. That's a long time to hold a single border, isn't it? But the Romans weren't really known for their patience. They were known for their persistence. This meant that the Romans had effectively erased Carthaginian influence from the Iberian Peninsula, paving the way for their own cultural and political dominance. It also demonstrated their strategic prowess, as they systematically dismantled resistance without being drawn into prolonged conflicts. The conquests of Gades and Saguntum symbolized Rome's growing might and ambition, a prelude to their eventual clash with Carthage itself. This strategic victory enabled Rome to solidify its power base in the region, setting the stage for future expansion. The fall of these cities marked a significant blow to Carthaginian trade and influence, as their Iberian territories were key sources of silver and other resources. The Romans also introduced Latin as the official language, further cementing their control and shaping the cultural landscape of the peninsula. Julius Caesar spent a few years in Gaul, from around 53 BC to about 50 BC. He wasn't just wandering around, he was taking control of the place, making it part of Rome. It's like if you were walking through your neighbor's house, but instead of just looking at their stuff, you started moving in and claiming it as your own. The Senate back home even asked him to step down after this big victory, because he was becoming too popular for his own good. That's how much power and attention this conquest brought him. He expanded Rome's territory by force, showing just how far the empire could stretch when pushed. You can picture Caesar standing on a hill, looking out over the newly conquered land, feeling the wind on his face and knowing that he had changed the map forever. That is what it means to conquer a place and change history. Under his command, Rome's legions built roads and fortifications across Gaul, securing their control. This conquest not only brought wealth and resources to Rome, but also instilled fear in neighboring territories, foreshadowing further expansion. Caesar's actions paved the way for Roman culture and law to permeate the region, forever altering its social fabric. In the year 27 BC, a man named Octavian took power in Rome. This was no ordinary rise to power. It marked the beginning of something new called the Augustan Principate. You know how sometimes a king or an emperor dies and his son takes over? Not this time. Octavian didn't inherit the throne. He created a whole new system, one where he wasn't just a king but more like a first among equals. This was different from anything Rome had seen before. It meant stability, order, and for many Romans, it was a relief after years of civil war. What's interesting is that this system lasted for centuries. It gave Rome structure when it needed it most. That was the real genius of Octavian's rise to power. It wasn't just about him becoming emperor, but about setting up something lasting and strong. This system also centralized power in Rome, reducing the influence of provincial governors. It meant that decisions were made by one man, promoting swift action and consistency. Additionally, it introduced the concept of hereditary succession, ensuring a smooth transition of power within Octavian's family. The Roman Senate granted Octavian the title of Augustus in 27 BC. This wasn't just a new name. It came with immense power and responsibility over the military. The Romans were meticulous record keepers, so we know that this happened nearly 5 centuries after the founding of the Senate itself, back in 753 BC. It's incredible to think about how long the Roman Empire lasted. They managed to maintain control over such vast territories for all those years. That is an extraordinary length of time to hold on to power. This title change marked a transition from Rome as a republic to an empire. Octavian's power was further solidified when he became the first Roman emperor, establishing a dynasty that would last for centuries. The title of Augustus set a precedent for future emperors, creating a new political system that profoundly shaped Western civilization. Augustus's rule began the Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and stability that facilitated trade and cultural exchange. His reforms included creating a permanent standing army and centralizing power under his command. This consolidation of authority marked the end of Rome's civil wars and laid the groundwork for its future imperial structure. In Gaul, Vercingetorix led the resistance against Caesar's conquest. This was no small feat, given that Caesar had a vast army at his command. The Romans were known for their engineering prowess, building structures like the Pont du Gard aqueduct to support their conquests. But Vercingetorix held out, showing incredible determination and strategy in the face of overwhelming force. That's an impressive act of defiance against such a formidable foe. Vercingetorix's strategies included burning crops to deny Caesar supplies. His defiance inspired others, showing that even mighty Rome could be resisted. The standoff ended only when Vercingetorix surrendered to save his people from starvation. His siege tactics were so effective that Caesar was forced to use starvation as a weapon. This resistance galvanized Gallic tribes, demonstrating that unity could counter Roman might. Yet, Vercingetorix's defiance didn't stop at burning crops. He also fortified Alesia, using its natural defenses to hold back Caesar's forces. This showdown was crucial, as it demonstrated the resilience of Gaul under a single leader. His actions sent a clear message that Rome wasn't invincible, sparking hope among the oppressed. In a single year, from AD 68 to 69, 4 emperors rose and fell in Rome. Galba started it off, ruling for just 7 months before being killed by Otho. Otho lasted only 2 months himself, then Vitellius took the throne for 8 months. Finally, Vespasian came to power and stayed there, bringing an end to this chaotic year. What does that tell us? That was a time of great instability, of swift changes at the very top of Roman society. It was a year when people might have woken up one morning not knowing who their emperor was anymore. That's how quickly power shifted in those days. This period, known as the Year of 4 Emperors, marked a power vacuum following Nero's death. Each emperor was chosen by their troops, highlighting the army's significant influence over Roman politics. The rapid succession of leaders reflects the deep divisions within the empire and the struggle for control among powerful factions. This power struggle left Rome in a state of near constant upheaval. Citizens had to constantly adapt to new rules and expectations. The political climate was so uncertain that no one dared speak out against the new emperor, fearing they might be seen as supporting the previous one. Vespasian ruled for 10 years. That's a significant chunk of time, especially in the context of ancient Rome, where emperors didn't always have the luxury of long reigns. Think about all the changes that can happen in a decade. New buildings constructed, laws passed, battles fought. 10 years is enough time to leave a real mark on history. That was Vespasian's opportunity. During his rule, Vespasian oversaw the construction of iconic structures like the Colosseum and the Temple of Peace. He also implemented fiscal reforms that stabilized Rome's economy after years of turmoil. These initiatives not only left tangible marks on the cityscape, but also laid the groundwork for future emperors to build upon. Vespasian also initiated large-scale public works, improving infrastructure and access to water. His reforms reduced corruption, ensuring fair tax collection and distribution of wealth across Rome. These efforts brought stability, fostering a period of growth and renewed confidence among the citizens. He established a new coin standard, bringing much-needed stability to Rome's currency. This move bolstered trade and commerce within the empire. Vespasian's focus on rebuilding also extended to education, with new schools being constructed to foster learning and intellectual growth. Domitian ruled Rome for 15 years. That's a long time in the life of an empire, where power shifts often and quickly. It means he had time to make changes, to build things that would last. Statues, temples, even cities might have been raised in his name. He could establish traditions, set policies that would shape Rome for years after his reign ended. That is a significant period of influence. Under his reign, Rome saw an architectural revival. The Pantheon was rebuilt in marble. His rule brought stability, allowing arts and literature to flourish. His rule saw the construction of grand aqueducts, bringing clean water to thousands. This infrastructure boosted public health and sanitation, demonstrating his commitment to improving daily life for Romans. His architectural projects also created jobs, stimulating the local economy. His construction projects were ambitious, employing skilled labourers and artisans. This not only enhanced the capital's grandeur, but also ensured that Rome's architectural prowess remained unparalleled. His public work signified a leader deeply invested in his people's well-being, fostering a sense of unity and pride among Romans. So, Caesar decided he wasn't playing by the rules anymore. He led his army across the Rubicon River, which was more than just a line on a map. It marked the border between Italy and the provinces, and by crossing it, Caesar was defying Roman law. He knew there was no going back from this, that it would start a civil war. The river itself, though not particularly wide or deep, still held significance. It had always been a boundary, something real and physical to separate one area from another. Caesar's act was a clear challenge, a bold statement that he was ready for conflict. That was a daring move, wasn't it? It changed the course of history in just one moment. The river's shallow waters offered no resistance as Caesar's legions marched on, symbolizing their resolve. The act was not just a rebellion against Rome, but also a declaration of independence for his loyal soldiers. It marked the end of the old order and the beginning of an uncertain future, one that would be shaped by the courageous actions taken on that very day. You know how a siege can be brutal? The one at Alasia was especially tough. See, Caesar had built a fortification around the Gauls, trapping them inside. And then, to make sure they couldn't escape, he built another set of defences outside of that, facing outwards. That way, anyone trying to rescue the Gauls from the outside would run straight into Roman defences. It was a double siege, essentially. The Gauls were stuck between two walls with no way out. After a while, their food ran low, and they surrendered. That's how Caesar completed his conquest of Gaul, by using clever engineering to trap the enemy. The Romans built watchtowers along these defences, allowing them to spot any rescue attempts from a distance. Each tower was manned by skilled archers, making escape nearly impossible. The Gauls were reduced to scavenging for food within their walls, leading to desperation and infighting. This siege strategy became a blueprint for future Roman campaigns, highlighting the power of strategic engineering. The Gauls, desperate for resources, began to dig tunnels under Caesar's defences in a last-ditch effort to escape. These tunnels were soon discovered and collapsed by the Romans, further tightening their grip. The psychological toll of the siege was immense, with many Gauls succumbing to despair and hopelessness. And that is where we will leave Roman Empire for tonight. The facts will still be true tomorrow, and this video will still be here whenever you need it. If you are still awake, and you would like to keep drifting through history, there will be another quiet video waiting for you on the screen when this one ends. And if these slow evenings help you rest, you might like to subscribe, or leave a soft comment, or share the video with someone who could use a gentler night. There is no hurry, and nothing you have to do. For now, you can let all of it go. You do not need to hold on to any of the names, or the places, or the numbers. None of it will be waiting for you in the morning. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let your breathing slow down and settle into its own quiet rhythm. Sleep well and good night.